A woman in a surgical mask asks you, "Am I pretty?" Say yes, you die. Say no, you die faster. There is no right answer. This is Kuchisake Onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman, and in 1979, she sent an entire country into panic. Imagine this. You're walking home alone. It's dusk, and the streetlights are just starting to flicker on, casting these long, skeletal shadows that seem to dance right at the edge of your vision. Suddenly, a woman steps out from an alley and blocks your path. She's wearing a surgical mask. You try to step around her, but she mirrors your every move. This silent, unnerving dance under the buzzing orange glow of the streetlights. She looks you right in the eye, and her voice is unnervingly calm when she asks you a simple question. Am I pretty? Be careful how you answer, because in this story, both yes and no are the wrong answer. Both choices guarantee your death. This isn't some riddle. This is what it's like to meet one of Japan's most feared spirits. Her name is Kuchisake Onna, the Slit-Mouthed Woman. She's an urban legend that became so real it once sent an entire country into a panic. She isn't a monster hiding in some remote forest or a ghost stuck in a haunted house. She walks the same modern streets you do, her terrible secret hidden behind something we've all gotten used to seeing, a simple medical mask. To understand her, you have to understand the terror of her question. It's a game you can't win, a social contract that always ends in bloodshed. But what happens if you say yes? What happens if you say no? And the most important question of all, is there any way to survive? Today, we're going to break down the terrifying legend of Kuchisake Onna, from her brutal origins to the real-world panic she caused, and explore the desperate, clever, and downright bizarre ways people have tried to escape the question that guarantees your death. To really get why she's so terrifying, we have to go back in time. Way back. Most people trace her story to Japan's Edo period, a time between the 1600s and late 1800s. It was the world of the samurai, a society with a strict code of honor where appearance was everything. For a woman, her value was often tied directly to her beauty and her loyalty to her husband. And it's in this pressure cooker of honor and vanity that the most popular version of her legend was born. The story starts with a woman who was said to be incredibly beautiful. She was married to a samurai, a man with power and status, but also a man filled with pride and a jealous streak. While her husband was away on business, she was left on her own. Some versions of the story say she was vain and unfaithful, cheating with other men. Others say she was just lonely. Either way, the result was the same. The rumors of her affairs eventually got back to her husband. Consumed by a violent, jealous rage, he confronted her. In his fury, he decided to give her a punishment that would destroy her beauty forever and serve as a permanent, horrific mark of her betrayal. He took his blade, some say a sword, others a small dagger, and as he sliced her mouth open from ear to ear, he snarled, "Who will think you are beautiful now?" This savage attack left her with a permanent, gruesome smile, a Glasgow grin that would forever mock the beauty she once had. Her life ended in that moment, but her suffering didn't. Her spirit was twisted by the rage and humiliation of her death, and she became what's known in Japanese folklore as an onryo, a vengeful spirit. These spirits emerged from Japan's Heian period over 1,000 years ago, and they almost always share one thing. They're women who died with such rage that death itself couldn't contain them. An onryo isn't just some lost soul floating around. It's a ghost driven by one thing and one thing only: revenge. These are usually the spirits of women who died with such intense anger or hatred that they can't move on. Instead, they stay in our world to make others suffer as they did. And so, the beautiful wife became Kuchisake Onna, a name that literally means slit-mouthed woman, a name as blunt and brutal as the act that created her. But like any good legend, that's not her only origin story. Another popular version says it wasn't a husband at all, but a jealous rival. In this telling, another woman, maybe a rival for a man's attention, or even her own sister, grew so envious of her beauty that she decided to destroy it, ambushing her and carving up her face. As the story moved into the modern era, new origins started to pop up that played on more contemporary fears. One of the most common modern versions says she was the victim of a botched medical procedure, maybe a dental surgery gone wrong, or a cosmetic operation where the surgeon's hand slipped. This taps into a very real, modern fear of medical malpractice. One specific version of this story adds a crucial detail. The surgeon who disfigured her was wearing a strongly scented hair product called Pomade. That smell became forever linked in her mind to the moment of her mutilation, a trigger for her rage. There are even stranger, more fragmented versions. One claims her mouth isn't slit at all, but is hiding rows of razor-sharp teeth. Another says there are actually 3 Kuchisake Onna sisters, each a victim of a different tragedy. But whether she was the victim of a jealous husband, an envious rival, or a clumsy doctor, the core of her story is always the same. She was a woman defined by her beauty in life, and is now defined by its violent destruction in death. She is a walking, talking embodiment of vengeance, and she now roams the dark and lonely streets, pulling others into her cycle of pain by asking one terrible question. The Kuchisake Onna of the Edo period was a frightening ghost story. But the Kuchisake Onna of today is something much more real and immediate. She's an urban legend, which means she doesn't just exist in the past. She exists in our world. She walks the same dimly lit streets, the same lonely alleyways, and the same quiet school routes as the rest of us. And that's what makes her so uniquely terrifying. The encounter almost always happens at night, usually around dusk. Her victims are often people walking alone, students heading home from late-night classes, or anyone unlucky enough to be by themselves in the quiet city streets. At first, she looks surprisingly normal. She's often described as a tall, beautiful woman with long, straight black hair, maybe wearing a trench coat. But the key detail, the thing that lets her blend in, is the surgical mask covering her mouth and nose. In Japan, especially before the pandemic, wearing a mask if you felt sick was just common courtesy. It's the perfect disguise, a symbol of polite society twisted into a veil for something horrible. She'll approach you and block your path. If you try to go around her, she'll just appear in front of you again, her movements impossibly fast and silent. Then, she'll ask the question in a calm, quiet voice. Watashi, kirei? Am I pretty? This is where her deadly trap is set. You're faced with a simple yes or no question, but both answers are a one-way ticket to a horrifying fate. Let's break it down. If you look at this masked woman and say no, whether out of fear, honesty, or just wanting to be left alone, your fate is sealed instantly. She takes this as a grave insult. She'll pull out a weapon. Some legends say it's a pair of long scissors, others say a knife or a scythe, and she will kill you on the spot. No hesitation, no second chances. Answering no is a direct insult, and the punishment is swift and final. This is where the real psychological terror begins. Let's say you answer yes, hoping to flatter her so she'll just let you go. For a split second, you might think you made the right choice. But then, she will slowly, deliberately, pull down her surgical mask. And that's when you see it. The source of her name and her rage. A grotesque, bleeding mouth sliced from ear to ear. A permanent, terrifying grin held together by torn flesh. The sight is meant to shock you, to freeze you in place with pure horror. Then, with her full disfigurement revealed, she'll lean in closer and ask again, "Core demo? Even like this? Or how about now?" Now you're really trapped. The game has changed. Your first yes was a lie, and she knows it. This second question is the test. If you scream, recoil, or change your answer to no, she becomes enraged. You've seen her truth and you've rejected it. As punishment, she'll use her weapon to slice your own mouth from ear to ear, forcing you to look just like her. Some versions say she kills you after this. Others say she lets you live, cursed with a wound that mirrors her own. But what if you answer yes a second time? You've seen the horror and still validated her. Surely that's the escape. Wrong. This is the cruelest fate of all. She'll smile, step aside, and let you walk home, where she'll murder you in your sleep. You're allowed to leave with false hope, letting the terror fester for hours before she finally comes for you. This is the perfect, inescapable trap. No means immediate death. Yes means disfigurement or a delayed, even more terrifying death. And don't even think about running. The legend says she's supernaturally fast and will always appear in front of you, no matter which way you turn. You can't fight her, you can't outrun her, and you can't answer her correctly. Her question isn't a real question. It's a sadistic game to force you to share in her endless misery. For most of its life, the story of Kuchisake Onna was just a spooky tale. But in the late 1970s, something changed. The legend broke out of the realm of folklore and caused a real-world panic that swept across Japan. This is the moment Kuchisake Onna went from being a myth to a threat that people believed was real. It all kicked off around January of 1979 in a place called Gifu Prefecture. Rumors started spreading among schoolchildren about sightings of a masked woman chasing them on their way home. One of the earliest stories came from a local newspaper, the Gifu Nichi Nichi Shinbun, which published an article about the strange woman. Soon after, national media picked it up, and what started as a local scare blew up into a nationwide sensation. The panic hit children the hardest. In the late 70s, more and more kids were attending juku, or cram schools, that ended late at night. This meant that huge numbers of young students were walking home after dark for the first time, making them feel vulnerable. Kuchisake Onna became the perfect boogeyman for this new urban anxiety, a real-life stranger danger that parents were terrified of, and this fear had very real consequences. All over the country, schools started organizing groups of teachers and parents to escort children home safely. Police departments were flooded with calls about alleged sightings and had to increase patrols around schools. The fear became so widespread that one major newspaper listed Kuchisake Onna as a buzzword for the summer of 1979, reporting that nearly every child in Japan knew the legend. The hysteria got so intense that it started to blur the line between legend and reality. In June 1979, a 25-year-old woman in the Hyogo Prefecture was arrested for dressing up as Kuchisake Onna. She had put on a mask, armed herself with a knife, and was wandering around trying to scare people, a prank that police took very, very seriously. Folklorists now look back on this as a classic case of mass hysteria, where a society's anxieties all get channeled into one shared, fantastical belief. Japan was changing, and people were afraid of the dangers of big city life. Kuchisake Onna was the perfect monster to represent those fears. The intense panic finally died down around the start of the summer holidays in 1979, almost as mysteriously as it began. But the damage was done. The 1979 scare cemented Kuchisake Onna in the national psyche as Japan's most iconic urban legend. She was no longer just some ghost from the past. She was a modern monster, proven real not by any actual evidence, but by the very real fear and chaos she was able to cause. Despite thousands of reported sightings and massive police patrols, not a single actual attack was ever documented, making this a textbook case of mass hysteria without physical evidence. So, you're cornered. The woman in the mask has asked her question. You know that yes and no will get you killed. Running is useless. It seems totally hopeless, but the same collective imagination that spread the panic also came up with a few bizarre loopholes in her deadly game. Over the years, a strange sort of survivor's guide has emerged, offering a few potential ways to escape. No guarantees, of course. Her whole trap relies on forcing you into a yes or no answer. So the first way to escape is to refuse to play. Instead of a clear answer, you give her something vague and non-committal. The most popular response is to say, "You look average," or "You're so-so." This is said to completely stump her. Her entire script is built around a clear yes or no. An answer like average doesn't compute. She gets confused, unsure how to react. And in that moment of confusion, you're supposed to run for your life. It's a psychological trick meant to short-circuit her vengeful logic. This method is a bit more whimsical. According to some playground rumors, Kuchisake Onna has a strange weakness for a specific type of hard candy called Beko Ame. It's a simple amber-colored candy, sort of like a lollipop. If you happen to have some, you can throw it on the ground in front of her. The legend says she has an obsessive compulsion to stop and pick up every single piece, giving you precious seconds to get away. During the 1979 panic, kids apparently started carrying this candy with them, just in case. It's a weird image, a terrifying spirit defeated by a sweet tooth, but it's one of the most famous escape tactics. This is, by far, the weirdest and most specific escape method. Remember that origin story where her face was cut by a surgeon wearing pomade? Well, because of that, she supposedly has a deep, almost allergic hatred for the stuff. The word pomade itself has become a kind of magical repellent. To use this defense, you just have to chant the word pomade 3 times. The sound of the word alone is said to be enough to make her recoil in disgust and run away. Some versions say you can also write the word on your hand and show it to her, or even throw a container of the actual hair gel at her feet to create a barrier she won't cross. It's a very strange weakness for such a scary monster, but it's deeply rooted in her lore. This final method plays on the importance of social etiquette in Japanese culture. Some versions of the legend say that despite her rage, she is still bound by certain social rules. If she asks you her question, you can respond by politely telling her that you have a prior commitment. Something like, "I'm sorry, I'm late for an important appointment." According to this telling, she will be so taken aback by your politeness that she may actually bow, apologize for bothering you, and let you go on your way. It's a risky move that banks on the hope that a tiny piece of her humanity is still in there somewhere. Another variation is to turn the question back on her and ask, "Am I pretty?" This, like the average answer, is meant to confuse her and buy you time to escape. These survival tactics, from psychological tricks to candy and polite excuses, add a really interesting layer to the legend. They turn a simple horror story into a game with a strange set of rules. But be warned, they're just legends. If you ever find yourself face to face with the Slit-Mouthed Woman, there's no guarantee any of them will actually work. Decades after the 1979 panic, Kuchisake Onna is bigger than ever. She has become a true pop culture icon in Japan and around the world, a powerful symbol for a lot of modern fears about beauty, identity, and the dangers of city life. In media, she's a full-blown horror star. She's been the subject of numerous films, like the 2007 movie Carved, The Slit-Mouthed Woman, and has appeared in countless manga, anime, and video games. Her story has even crossed borders. In the early 2000s, a version of her legend popped up in South Korea, where she was said to wear a red mask, a reflection of that country's anxieties around plastic surgery. But she's more than just a movie monster. Modern interpretations have reframed her as a tragic figure, a victim of extreme violence. In this light, her story is a dark commentary on the intense pressures placed on women. She was a woman who was punished for her beauty, and her mutilated face is a symbol of the violent consequences of not conforming to society's expectations. Her question, "Am I pretty?" stops being just a threat. It becomes this tragic, twisted question about a world that first values women for their looks and then brutally punishes them. She also still represents the fear of the unknown stranger in a crowded city. The fact that she hides behind a surgical mask, an object of anonymity, makes her the perfect symbol for the idea that horror can be hiding in plain sight. She is the ultimate urban fear, a threat that comes not from an ancient ruin, but from the lonely street corner right outside your home. She's a complex monster. She's a traditional Japanese spirit and a modern urban legend. She's a cautionary tale against cruelty and a tragic symbol of rage. She's a terrifying ghost story, and she's also a lens through which we can see our own real-world fears about safety, societal pressure, and the violence that can hide just beneath the surface. And this legend continues to evolve. What's the most terrifying urban legend from your country? Drop it in the comments, because every culture has its own version of the Slit-Mouthed Woman. She's a perfect predator for our modern world. She isn't tied to one haunted place. She's everywhere. And her mask, which was once a unique disguise, now lets her blend in on any street, in any city, anywhere in the world. You've been watching Horror Across Borders, where every legend reveals the truths we try to bury. New stories drop every Tuesday and Thursday. Subscribe and share because fear has no borders. And remember, the next time someone in a mask asks if they're pretty, just keep walking.